Okay, what the video clip would have shown you, you can see already some of the smoke or the cold air entering the house. It enters and it goes only one direction, straight down the side, straight onto your litter, straight across the birds, exactly where you don't want cold air to be traveling. In the minimum ventilation on a closed environment house, it revolves all around negative pressure. In other words, creating a pressure differential from outside the house to the inside by the use of extraction fans. That differential then determines the speed of the air. So again, it gives us this thing called control. We can control how the air will enter the house. We can move it around the house, keep it away from the birds, allow it to warm up properly so that by the time it does reach the birds, it's fresh air, but it's warm air. It also helps us to utilize heat that we've already paid for, that's sitting in the top of our house, paid for but not used. We will then reuse that, utilize that, and reduce heating costs. And because all of this is driven by a fan, we can determine how much air we will be putting into the house. Again, we're not dependent on wind or how much the curtains are open. We can determine how much air is going to be coming into the house. And as such, it helps us we can even increase things like stocking density and have more birds per house. So again, we have the heat accumulated with the use of this negative pressure and fans. We can put air up into the top of the house, mix it properly, bring the warm air back down to where we need it on the birds, and help keep conditions in the house good. There's our high airspeed, far away from the birds, and down at bird level, virtually no air, which is exactly what you need during minimum ventilation. It's okay, you saw it earlier. Okay, the second stage of ventilation, after minimum ventilation, we start talking about this thing called transitional ventilation. Probably if I had to compare open houses and closed environment houses, this is the only area where an open-sided house can compete from a ventilation point of view, can compete with a closed environment house, and that is during transitional ventilation. On your open houses, it's the period where you get the curtains nice and open, nice and wide, lots of airflow through the house, there's not too much wind, the birds are not cold, they're not too hot. That's great. In the closed environment house, we design the house that we have many sidewall inlets on the house, we use our tunnel fans, and we get really large volumes of air through the house to ensure good comfort on the birds. Hot weather is probably the one that troubles you more than the cooler weather. And along with the hot weather, probably the most dangerous weather condition that you can have is hot and humid. And during these periods, anything can happen. Production can drop off, performance can drop off, mortality can occur. But if I'm asked to go to a customer and they've asked me to design a new house for them or help them upgrade, and I hear the two words come out together, hot and humid, the only way that you get past hot and humid days, if there is a way to get past, is high airspeed. So in your curtain-sided houses, yes, you can have circulation fans in the house, you can open your curtains, you can put spray systems inside. It can probably help you get by if you've got decent insulation in your roof. But the circulation fans, most times they're installed inside your house, so all they're doing is they're just recirculating hot, humid air around over your birds. There's no air exchange rate from outside. You really want to get rid of all that humidity that's developing in your house and exchange the air through your house. The closed environment house, again, if it's designed properly, we can get air speeds up to 3 meters, over 3 meters per second, depending on the design. We can exchange all the air in that house within 30 or 40 seconds, very quick, very easily. We can give more uniform conditions to the bird from one end of the house to the other, from the left-hand side of the house across to the right-hand side. Again, provided that the house is designed properly. We can add evaporative cooling pads, we can cool the temperature down, give the bird the extra benefit. During tunnel ventilation, we start to talk about this thing called effective temperature. We forget about what the thermometers are showing us. We focus only on effective temperature. And unfortunately, there is no thermometer that can show you what effective temperature the bird is actually feeling. The effective temperature, as you can see, it's a combination of the dry bulb temperature, relative humidity, airspeed traveling over the bird, the age of the bird, and to a certain extent, the stocking density. This is a very simple graph from one of the universities, some research. You can see I haven't included any bird age, bird weight, relative humidity. Just to give you an indication on some of the research that's been done, this was over 3 kilogram birds, I can tell you that. And very, very clear to see, if we can generate the airspeed, we can get a cooling effect on the bird. I'm sure most people are familiar with wet and dry bulb thermometers. People are often wondering, well, how much, it's very humid in my climate, is it worth having cooling pads? How much cooling can I get? Just very quickly, that's the wet and dry bulb thermometer you can see on the right-hand side. And just to illustrate, if you have a wet and dry bulb thermometer, you put it outside. I say outside, but it must be covered, not in the sunlight, not exposed to any radiant heat. Measure during the peak heat of the day, the highest temperature of the day. You will always see a difference. The red one being your dry bulb, the blue one being your wet bulb. There will always be a difference in temperature. That difference between the wet and dry bulb is the maximum amount of cooling you can get from evaporative cooling if your system was 100% efficient. No cooling pad is 100%. They're normally around 75 to 80% efficient. So if you look at that, take that measurement during the hottest part of the day, and you look at 75 to 80% of the degrees Celsius difference, that's roughly how much cooling you can achieve by using evaporative cooling pads. In places like around Riyadh and Saudi Arabia, we can drop the temperature from 47 degrees down to about 23 degrees. If you take that to humid climates like in Thailand, maybe you can get 5 degrees, 4 degrees, somewhere around there. Now, my opinion, my feeling, closed environment houses can and should be used virtually in every country around the world. If your focus is on bird comfort and bird performance by keeping the birds comfortable and happy in your house, in my view, closed environment houses can be used anywhere. And definitely, the more extreme you start talking about temperatures, people are talking about very cold temperatures, way below zero, temperatures getting up into the 40s. And again, as soon as you mention humidity and temperature together, definitely there is a need for closed environment, controlled environment. Having said all that, I will also say to you right now, without any doubt, it does not mean that you can go out, build a controlled environment house, equip it nicely, and expect perfect results. In fact, sometimes you may not even expect results better than you're getting right now. You have to know how to use it. It's just another management tool to help you get the best out of your birds, to look after your birds, keep them in good condition, keep them alive on some days, and get the best out of them. It does not guarantee you are going to get fantastic results. It definitely will take you there once you know how to use it, but you have to learn how to use it. So, some of the limitations, some of the downfalls of closed environment housing. We've spoken about the importance of making sure that the house is well sealed. When your house is designed, depending on where you are in terms of your winter period or your cooler period, you need to make sure that you have enough heating capacity in your house. Make sure that that heating capacity is well distributed in your house. Do not fall into the trap of thinking to yourself that the less heating I put into my house, the less it'll cost me in heating capacity in the cold period. In fact, the exact opposite is true. The more heating you put into a house, the less you'll pay in heating costs. People who try to put the bare minimum always pay the most. Look at the number on your design, your sidewall inlets for transition ventilation. The broiler industry, in my opinion, still hasn't recognized the importance of sidewall inlets for transition ventilation, a critical part of your system. Sidewall fans for your minimum ventilation. The tunnel ventilation system needs to be properly designed. Be very, very careful about trying to design houses for yourself. The fans, the number of fans, will be determined by the airspeed that you want. You need to know, have a good feeling for what your operating pressure of that house is going to be. That will depend on the airspeed that you're designing around, and definitely the cooling pad that you're going to be using. You'll be amazed, but there are equipment companies out there that still get this very, very wrong. So be very careful. That's a broiler house in South Africa. And the thing I just wanted to show you there, look at the number of side inlets. That's for transition ventilation. The climate in this area where this house is, it only gets down to maybe about 5 degrees in the winter and maybe 42, 43 in the summer, but very humid. Cooling pads, even, as I say, even equipment companies sometimes are not aware of this. Cooling pads are not all the same. You predominantly get 10 centimeter and 15 centimeter wide. They are not the same. Even if you look at all the 15 centimeter cooling pads, depending on those two angles there, the pad performs differently. So be careful again. If you're going this route, get somebody to design the house who knows what they're doing, and it'll work for you. I've just spoken now about trying to design houses for yourself, especially people who try to go on the internet and get the information there and then do their own calculations. The internet doesn't teach you everything, unfortunately. Be careful about that. I see people make that mistake often. It's not my interest. Again, I don't sell equipment, but I hate to see people spend money and make a mistake when they spend it. The second last most important part. These houses are usually automated. They have a control system, and everything about the house is automated. It opens and closes and switches fans on and off automatically. The control system, or the brain that operates all of this, my strongest advice to you, keep it as simple as you possibly can. There are equipment companies that will come to you and they will tell you, my control system, very unique, it can do all these fancy things for you. I will send somebody from my country, wherever it came from, we will put the settings in. Your people will not have to touch it. It will do everything for you. You'll put the birds in, and you can come take your birds out at the end of the day. That's very dangerous. If you take that information, you're taking a huge risk. There is no control system available that does not still need human intervention. No control system can take a walk in the house and look at your bird comfort. It doesn't exist. So your control system, keep it as simple as possible. You still need to get into your house. You still need to observe your bird behavior, your bird comfort, your house conditions. But the fact is, you need to keep that control system simple enough that you can walk over to it afterwards, make whatever adjustment you need, and make sure that your birds have become comfortable. If you don't do that, that control system that you've just spent so much money on is absolutely worthless. It's useless to you. And then the last slide is definitely the most important part. When changing, if you're thinking of changing from open-sided houses to closed environment houses, training and education is going to take you from where you are to where you can be. You cannot just expect somebody to walk in and operate these houses. There's new concepts, negative pressure, cycle timers, wind chill factors, how to set my inlets correctly. All of these things people are going to have to learn. And without learning and educating these people how to operate the new houses, you're going to fall short. I have seen many customers who have taken one or two of their houses, upgraded them to closed environment, go back 2 years later, which house is giving you better performance? my old house. Why? It's not because the technology is wrong, it's because they don't know how to use it yet. Thank you.